Hello again, it's been a while. In this one, I solved the four-dimensional Rubik's Cube, and I just want to say ahead of time that there will definitely be spoilers on how to solve it in this video, judging from the title. So, if you want to solve it on your own, pause it, and then come back when you're... The first part is understanding the four-dimensional Rubik's Cube, or 4D in general. Here are some of the basics. There are 4 directions to move in, 6 directions to rotate in, as you can see from the middle drawing there, and then there are projections to help you visualize objects in a fewer amount of dimensions than what they are naturally in. In this case, we have a projection of a cube that is very similar to the projection used in Magic Cube 4D. Now for the 4D hypercube. It is 8 sides, also known as cells, following the 2, 4, 6, 8 pattern, 24 squares, 32 lines, 16 corner points, and each side is adjacent to 6 others. Then we have the anatomy of the 4D Rubik's Cube. Here are its piece types. It has what appear to be 3D corners, which have 4 stickers, what appear to be 3D edges, which have 3 stickers, what appear to be standard 3D centers, which have 2 stickers, and then the true centers, which appear to be more like the core of a regular Rubik's Cube that have only 1 sticker. And also stickers are cubes in this, as stickers are squares in the 3D Rubik's Cube. And this cube has 16 corners, 32 edges, 24 centers, and 8 true centers. Notice the similarity between those values and those in section 2. Finally, we have 4-dimensional rotations. Since the 3D Rubik's Cube only has square sides, they only all have 1 rotation direction. However, a 4-dimensional side, which is a cube, can be rotated any way possible, which involves not just the standard face rotations, but also edge and corner rotations. So now you should be able to understand what those actually mean in Magic Cube 4D. I first started with the 2x2x2x2 just to get myself used to 4 dimensions. I began with a layer, or a side, or a cell. Then I made it into a layer by solving a regular 3D 2x2 within the hidden slot. I expanded the layer with solving the other side. I then tried to solve the OLL there, and eventually, once everything was done, I had solved PLL with alignment, but I will explain that more in depth here. I began solving the 3x3x3x3 by solving the first layer. First I got a square there, and I continued making bars to keep things organized, and eventually tried joining them up. But there had been a problem. The centers were misaligned, which made this unsolvable. So, what I did was I took out pieces of the first layer, or first cell, and then did PLO algorithms on them to change the order of pieces to get rid of any parity problems. I had eventually gotten quite close to solving the first layer, only with a bit of PLO parity, which was fixed once again with PLO algorithms on chunks of the cell. And, just like that, I had solved the first layer and completed the first step in solving the 4-dimensional Rubik's Cube. After this, I had to begin the next stage, F2L. On a 3D cube, this is done by creating pairs, but this seems a lot more difficult on this, and I decided to try different things at first. I initially solved just another side there, like I did on the 2x2x2x2, to see what I could do from there. I tried solving a Rubik's Cube with that side, but it had parity problems and it simply wouldn't work, so I had to make a big reset. This time, I was doing block building with F2L with rotations on each of the sides and ensuring that they were in the right order. I had solved the blue part of the F2L and aligned the brown and greens, as you can see there. I then continued by solving the brown part, yellow part, or almost all the brown part, and just building it up with taking out pairs. With algorithms like that. And putting them in. I would build up pairs by manipulating them using the top cell, and I would make more progress that way. Soon after, I had reached the point where I was very close to finishing F2L and only needed to fix a few squares, and after a bit of block building work, I was soon to be finished. I had been changing the orders here though to help build pairs, and eventually all I had to do was insert one last pair with the simple algorithm and finish F2L. Thus begins stage 3, 2 squares. Now you might be used to the next step of the Rubik's Cube being OLL and PLL. However, what I plan to do is reduce this into a 3-dimensional cube, and to do that first I'd have to solve 2 top quote-unquote squares of 2 opposite cells in this second layer. I had chosen blue and yellow, so I started with blue, and then eventually started making progress towards yellow. Here I inserted a center bar. I then entered a second one, but the third one is where problems began. I had to do weird corner rotation stuff with the RUR prime U prime, RUR prime U prime, and then doing any type of D-move algorithm, which could be extended to 4D, because since you could rotate the bottom layer in any way, not just one direction, and eventually with that, unfortunately I didn't have that part on camera, I had basically inserted the pair for the yellow square, rotated the bottom, did the RUR prime U primes a couple times to reset the other 2 layers back to their original states, and then I had moved that. For the last layer, I did a process that I like to call OLL alignment. It probably has another name, but I'm going to stick with that because this is what I came up with in my solve. So, if you take one OLL algorithm, or one OLL case, there would be a certain algorithm used to solve it. But also, there was another thing you could do. You could turn it into a different OLL case. So now, if you had one OLL case and took another OLL case and rotated it in the right way, if you did the exact same algorithm, you could end up with the same case if you were acting on both of these layers at the same time. In that case, no pun intended, you'd be able to solve the case and then solve 4-dimensional OLL. Now, here's me trying to do that. I had begun with trying to solve the edges first of OLL, but it was pretty difficult. I had done some alignment things, but eventually I had reached the point where I had aligned them. After that, it was a simple algorithm to solve all the edges of OLL. Anyways, I then tried to align the corners. I had first managed to align 2 of the layers out of the 3, which made me much closer to solving OLL. After that, I had done some corner rotation algorithms after doing PLL algorithms to solve OLL. With 1 center rotation, I was very close to solving the cube. Next up is PLL alignment, but unfortunately, it didn't work out too well because there were parity problems on the middle layer, which prevented me from solving the corners of PLL. I then had to use some clever tricks to try and solve it. As you can see, the pieces do not align together if you look at the middle layer of this PLL, so I had to get creative. I had done PLL algorithms with setup moves to help me to fix this parity. I had rotated the top layer and done a few other weird things on it. I don't have all the footage for this step, but it was definitely one of the hardest problems in solving this cube. But eventually, I had turned the middle layer into a solvable case, which allowed me to continue OLL alignment. With that one Y-perm, corner alignment was done, and now I just simply had to align edges. As you can see here, I had a U-perm on all of these, so I had decided to then align things and do a U-perm. After this, though, I had just one U-perm left on its own. Now, I realized that since the algorithm works in cycles, if I could do that one U-perm with 3 U-perms, I could, in theory, move it around in the right ways, or this inner layer around in the right ways, and eventually solve it. Now, I had solved the layer, but it wasn't rotated the right way. So, what I did was I had done a Y-perm, rotated, and done another Y-perm to align things. However, the edges were slightly messed up, and all I had to do now was use U-perms again to align the edges, and I had reduced the cube, or the hypercube, I should correct myself, to a 3D cube. All that stood in the way of me in the solution was one U-perm. I had a macro for it, but I decided to do it myself. And now, just like that, I had solved the 4-dimensional Rubik's Cube. I didn't even know that this congratulations pop-up existed. This thing was insanely hard. It took me 20 hours. Now for my takeaways from solving this. It was a very difficult challenge, took 20 hours, but also very rewarding. After every little problem that I solved along the way, it just felt amazing that I was just slightly closer to solving this puzzle. It seemed impossible at first, but after doing it part by part, I had realized that it was easier than I thought it was. I think that you should try solving these 4-dimensional things too. I find it very fun, and I hope to do more in the future. Maybe I'll do a 4x4, maybe you'll even do a 5-dimensional Rubik's Cube. But anyways, for those who stuck around, here's a time lapse.